right, just to go over something here. This ceiling to wall connection was completely cracked. Of course, it's a truss system for the roof. And in cold climate, the two outer cords, which is where your shingles are at, tend to get really cold and they shrink, and it pulls up on the bottom cord of the truss, which is running along your ceiling, and you end up getting this gap. So there's a couple ways to try, and it should have been done right to begin with. I mean, that's a whole nother story. All they did was they had the house constructed. You can tell that the walls were built after. Of course, it's a truss system, so you don't need anything to support it, because the truss itself is able to support itself. But when you're building walls, on your top plate, you can run a bigger piece, like a 2x8, a 2x10, which would extend past your top of the wall. And instead of screwing the drywall to the bottom cord of the truss, you would screw to the extra top plate on the wall. And generally you would want to come out at least 6 inches, maybe more, depending on how much flex or deflection is going to happen. So for here, for instance, I would have probably screwed to the truss here, and then anything going towards the wall, either direction, I would have screwed to the extended top plate going out. That way it can flex a little bit and it won't crack your joint. So since we're not going to go through and cut everything open just to fix that, there's a technique that I've been wanting to try to see how this would work. Because if you just come in here and fill it with mud, you're either going to fill it during the season where it's super cold out and it's going to be elevated, and then that's going to come back down and potentially crack again, or you're going to do it during the summer when everything is kind of tight because everything's, you know, expanded together, and then it's going to crack again in the winter when it lifts up. So what I'm going to do is come in with spray foam. I'm going to spray foam that, let it set up, cut out the access, and then retape and remud using hot mud, as everyone would like to call it. Just joint compound that you mix up in a bag. There's Durabond and there's Easy Sand. I generally stick to the Easy Sand 20-minute. Just because it's, like the name implies, it is easier to sand. Still made pretty much with the same ingredients. It's a setting type. It's harder. It doesn't leave indentations with your nails. It's not like a topping coat where you're skim coating a wall and it dents real easy. It's a lot more durable. So we're gonna spray foam this and let it set up and see how it goes. All right, I'm using Great Stuff. I do have the gun with the extended tip on the nozzle to try and get in there as deep as I can. Yeah, let me get this going. All right, so obviously you wouldn't want it to look like that if you're trying to just do some spot touch up. It's kind of a pain in the ass getting that going. If I was trying to minimize the amount of work that I had to do, I would tape that off ceiling and wall and just have a nice like 1/4 inch gap where they meet, in the corner, exposed to do this. But I'm gonna let this dry, set up, and then I'm gonna come back, use a razor knife, clean it up, and sprayed quite a bit in there, so hopefully it kind of holds where it's at. It'll the drywall that's above the wall, because this is a full sheet and they built the wall up to it. Hopefully it'll compress enough that it will have minimal flexing. Plus, the other thing too is this will add more of an insulation factor, so maybe it won't influence maybe this bottom cord will not get as warm as it did in the past. Now a lot of this cracked because I was doing a lot of work up in the attic, running duct work for exhaust vents, putting in new exhaust vents for the bathrooms, and so I was moving back and forth in this vicinity, which I think it was already a problem, but it exposed even more because it had weight coming down and it flexed it and cracked it even more. So hopefully it works. Like I said, the proper way to do it is on top of your top plate for your wall, you would put you could use, 3/4 inch plywood, but you want to go out at least 6 to 8 inches. I would prefer probably a foot either side of the wall if it's exposed, on either side, that you could screw to for your drywall. That way, when it does flex because of the weather changes, it minimizes the flex that is put on the joint. So we'll wait for this to dry, cut it out, and see where it looks. All right, so I'm getting ready to scrape it off. It's pretty close to being dry. It's been a few hours. Little wet when you get into the center of it, if it's a big glob, but I'm scraping it off. I know it doesn't look too pretty right now, but let me get up there. To scrape it off, all you really got to do is just come up, get it from both sides, and then you can just start peeling it off. It'll come down, and then you just clean it up as best you can. Remember, I'm going to be retaping and mudding this, so whatever remnants are left on here, it's not going to affect anything. It's going to get covered up and it'll get painted. So I'll continue cleaning that up. Then we'll let that set up overnight. You can definitely tell right now, this is not moving nowhere near what it was. So it's definitely gotten more rigidity in it, which is what we wanted. So it should work.